Is Elizabeth, and I'm the Community Manager at iTrain Asia, and I'm more than happy to welcome you today to our webinar on micro-credentials, and we will be discussing what are they, and will they really revolutionize education and improve job prospects. Today we are joined by Mr. David Kinsella, the founder and director of Credly Emeritus, MK Choong, Regional Manager of AXELOS in Asia Pacific, and Anthony Raja Devadoss, the Managing Director and Senior Client Partner Executive Search at Korn Ferry and representing Pickham Academy. And so to brief you in more about iTrain Asia, so iTrain Asia is supporting digital transformation in Southeast Asia, and we are the pioneers and leaders in tech learning. And at iTrain, we believe in two core principles: the power of technology to shape the future and help us build a better world, and that love of learning is a source of human ingenuity and well-being. And our goal, which is backed by government and academia, is to fast-track Asian businesses with the latest technology, applications, and know-how. iTrain Group is part of a larger ecosystem of partner companies that offer the entire lifelong learning journey of digital transformation and growth for individuals. We have iTrain Kids, which is a coding school for kids ages from 7 to 16. Then we have the micro degree program, which we'll be introducing you to later on today. Then we have iTrain, which is a company based here in Malaysia. That is a technical skill training center here in Kuala Lumpur. And iTrain Asia, that is a certification exam body registered in Singapore. And 1337 Ventures, that is a venture capital and crowdfunding startup fund. So iTrain Asia has trained more than 100,000 students in countries, more than 26 countries now. With the latest data, it should be around 36 countries at the moment via our authorized training partners and universities. And so iTrain Asia offers digital skills, and so not only in the micro degrees, but also mobile development, blockchain, data science, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, fintech, digital marketing, and cybersecurity. And within the micro degree program, we have the full stack developer, data engineer, deep learning, AI engineer, and design thinking professionals. And we are also the only learning institute in Southeast Asia partnering with NVIDIA Deep Learning Institute. And these are some of the clients we've had the chance to work with so far and help their businesses to advance with the latest technology know-hows. And back in the day when social gatherings were allowed and more encouraged, we were the proud winners of the 2019 Associa ICT Education Award. And also now what I wanted to share with you all is that iTrain Asia is organizing the Microsoft Azure Women in AI program that is fully sponsored by Microsoft. And we will be having our trainings. Upcoming one is already this Friday. And then we'll also have the AI trainings in December 11th and 18th. So it's a one-day online virtual instructor-led training that is completely free of charge for women in the Southeast Asia region. And you will learn the fundamentals of artificial intelligence. So all the women who are eligible from the respective countries, you're more than welcome to reach out to us and register also for the training. And I'm also excited to share with you all, as the managing director of the Girls in Tech Kuala Lumpur chapter, that we have launched and that we will be having our launch event on the 8th of December. So you can register also for that, but that's for the women who are attending the today's session. So we will be joined by Adriana, who's the founder and CEO of Girls in Tech, Annie Matthew, the Director Developer Relations at Microsoft APAC, Miss Ollie, she's the Group Chief People Officer at AXELOS, and Miss Salika, the Director of Clients and Markets at PwC Malaysia, and Dr. Sabaria, who is the Head of Media Research at University UKM. So yeah, all the ladies, you're more than welcome to join this session. But so let me begin with what is microcredential? What are microcredentials? So it is a certification of learning of a smaller set of courses or modules or units which are designed to provide learners with knowledge, skills, values, and experience. So the term encompasses various forms of certifications, including nano degrees, micro masters, credentials, certificates, digital badges, etc. As the name implies, micro-credentials focus on much smaller modules of learning than those covered in conventional academic awards, which often allow learners to complete the required learning over a shorter period. So upskilling and reskilling, that is the 3 to 4 years university education degree, while still important, requires a longer time to complete, which is a challenge for in a rapidly changing post-COVID-19 age. So micro-credentials offer a more dynamic, competitive, demand-driven, shorter and less expensive alternative to the traditional degree. And such credentials can also offer lower cost options to acquire the required knowledge, skills, and competencies, allowing the learners to enter the workforce sooner and pursuing further credentials if their career or professional interests warrants it. So it's on-demand and industry-driven journey. And so the principles of good micro-credentials, we call it degree bit by bits by bytes, and it's an outcome-based, it's based on the pedagogy, and it's personalized, secure and shareable, it's transparent, and those are the micro-credentials that we are offering. And so how these micro-credentials are validated and certified is that validation of micro-credentials will be done by a team of subject matter experts, including technical experts. The framework is designed and put in place to verify the depth and scope of the micro-credentials, and it will be linked to quality control and continuous improvement requirements. And certification will be done once a full stacked micro-credential has been completed within the specified duration, and assessments and other testing methods have been satisfied and passed. And then the certification will be given either in the form of a digital certification or a badge. So yeah, the recognition of micro-credentials can be either a credit transfer or an Apple C. And iTrain Asia currently is offering the digital badges degree program and deep learning engineer, full stack developer, UX designer, and data engineer. So it's a 160 hours of face-to-face or virtual class, which are over 4 weeks, 8 weeks, or 12 weeks with 160 hours of teaching hours, tutorials, and projects. You have real-world projects that you will be doing on one to multiple projects throughout the class, and you may also be involved with actual project the company is doing. You will be offered for candidates when you're transitioning the job market, a career support. So when you're changing careers or during periods of unemployment. And so the certificate and digital badge will be imparted to the candidate upon a completion of the course and projects with acceptable quality. And yes, so to find out more about this, you can follow our website. So read about it more on itrainasia.com/microdegree. But without further ado, I would like to give the floor to the speakers to initially introduce themselves. So, and after the introductions, we will have the forum discussion session where most of your questions will be answered. So thank you to all of you who submitted the questions in before. And if you have any questions during the live session, you can ask them in the Facebook chat option on the right hand side, or on the LinkedIn page comment section as well. So we will be addressing the questions submitted throughout the webinar at the end of the session, but the questions submitted already before, we will be answering right after our speakers will be introducing ourselves. So I would like to invite Mr. David to give an introduction on himself. David, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Elizabeth, and fantastic to be here to be sharing the platform with my fellow panelists, Anthony and MK. So here I'm sharing some information, but looking forward to learning from these gentlemen during the session as well. And can I congratulate you, Elizabeth, on the programs that you're offering? I was almost thinking, well, have I got time to fit that in as well? So anyway, I might share my screen if that's okay, and I'll set the scene with a little bit of background if that's... just let me know if this is coming through. Are you seeing my screen okay? Have you got that yet? Let me know if that's coming through. Okay. Are we seeing?
We can see your screen, but we can see the speaker notes kind of. So if you can go, yeah.
Yeah, I'll give a different view and let's see if that works. Okay. So let's see if we can play it from here. How's that?
Yep.
You've got that?
Yep, it's good.
Okay, good. All right. David Kinsella, co-founder of Credly Devadoss, which we founded in 2018 to represent Credly in the Asia Pacific region. My journey with Credly started well before that in the United Kingdom, working with the City and Guilds Group, and I was on the client side in the UK's largest provider of training and certifications. They issued at City and Guilds 1.5 million to 2 million certs and quals per year. And at the time, we were focusing on micro-credentialing, and we were focusing on fragmenting longer forms of certifications and qualifications, creating on-ramps and off-ramps from those programs. And we were involving employers, we were involving professional associations and subject matter experts in that process. And at that time, the horizon scanning for us was less about transferring knowledge from educators to program participants and more about delivering outcomes, getting people into jobs, progressing on the job, moving on to the next job. And the value of that was that was the profound compact that we saw that we had with those that signed up and invested their time and money in City and Guilds programs. What we then started to experiment with is this idea of digital credentials, and that is giving the optimal communications device to package up information about those accomplishments so that those individuals that went through those programs could more effectively connect with professional opportunities. The challenge we had back then, the goal was that by 2020, all of those programs needed to end in digital credentials. Again, because we wanted to deepen the connection with those that were engaged in our programs and certainly connect them through to outcomes. At that point, when we started on this journey, there were around 4 million digital credentials on the Credly platform. And today, as at 2021, we've passed 47 million digital credentials on the platform, a network, an ecosystem of 2,000 plus partners that we work with, and 95% of the top IT certifications in the world are issued and managed on Credly. Okay, so setting the scene for my contribution to the panel today is about making a distinction between the work that the brands that you're seeing on the screen here and Korn, Ferry and AXELOS in their process of creating pathways and micro-credential programs, the job that we see at Credly, our mission is to package up information about those accomplishments and allow people to then connect through to professional opportunities and to develop deeper connections with each of those organisations. Okay. As at last week, very proud to note that Credly is seen as one of the fastest growing companies in North America and has made the Deloitte Technology Fast 500 list. So this idea of being the fuel to energize these ecosystems with digital credentials, these micro-credential ecosystems, is really gaining traction around the world. Okay, but if you wanted to package all of that up, what's underneath the technology? What's underneath all of the functions and features of the Credly platform? It's these core principles. And that is, how do we help organisations make better decisions based on trusted information about what people know and what they can do? How do we allow organisations to make data-driven talent decisions? How do we allow organisations to understand better the aspirations and interests of those that come into their care? And then the second part of this, equally important, that we see a world where individuals, where people will be seen for their skills. They'll be able to connect with opportunities based on the skills that they've got, based on the knowledge they've got. So really that's what underpins Credly. But this is, I wanted to make a distinction here again between the micro-credentialing programs and what we're going to discuss today around micro-credentials. And to add another perspective and a slightly different definition to the one that you've given, Elizabeth, but I certainly think it makes for a richer view of what a micro-credential is. And this is from a recent UNESCO report. And again, it's just progressing this discussion about what a micro-credential is. So a focus record of learning achievement about what a learner knows, understands, or can do. Includes an assessment based on standards and is awarded by a trusted provider. And one of the points to discuss today is this idea of what is a trusted provider. As digital credentials increase in volume and type, the value of the trusted issuer becomes incredibly important. And AXELOS, Korn, Ferry, both great examples that the micro-credential programs that will come from their programs are certainly trusted. Has standalone value or may contribute or complement to other programs. And also may represent recognised prior learning. And then the assessment process. There must be some quality assurance around the whole management of micro-credential programs. So with that introduction and that setting the scene, I will start to focus on digital credentials going forward, but I might hand back to you, Elizabeth, and to my fellow panelists for their introductions.
Thank you so much, David, for sharing and for your addition to what are micro-credentials. And now, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to MK.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'll share my screen now. You guys let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, so basically, I'm MK Choong. I'm from the AXELOS Global Best Practice UK. So who is AXELOS? AXELOS UK is the driving force behind the world-class best practice in the global scene. And we basically are being trusted globally in terms of where we are behind the folks who are promoting and owning the IP for products such as Prince2 and ITO4 in the IT service management as well as the project management space. And we have presence over 200 countries with 23 languages, residing in industry sectors and large and small ones as well. And AXELOS Global Best Practice products are also tried and tested in the practical guidance, and it is based on the real world experience. And the syllabus and also the content are being worked on involving collaborations of global network of subject matter experts. And we in AXELOS UK are also passionate. We are dedicated to help users in many ways to improve their ways of working. And also we are committed to continual refinement and evolution in terms of the technology advancement as well as the way of learning on how, such as how we are today just going to discuss about micro-credential in the working environment for younger generations. And also we are also driven by the extraordinary real world outcomes of our users' achievement in terms of the user experience and also the learning experience. As what Elizabeth has mentioned earlier on, the micro-credential, one of the key areas is about the outcome. So that is going to be discussed further on during the panel. Also, we in AXELOS UK, we are always with you. We are ready to achieve more with you. We are right here at your side, offering a powerful range of products in guiding yourself and then in the industry. And we are also offering the thriving best practice community where we have a worldwide of subject matter experts and users in terms of supporting the content in terms of continuous improvement. And here's just a summary of the list of AXELOS Global Best Practice UK's products, where the comprehensive range of best practice frameworks and methodologies range in the IT service management, project management, program, portfolio, and change management as well. And a little bit of myself, I have been regional manager for in this region for over 20 years in the ICT multinational company. And currently I'm with the AXELOS Global Best Practice UK, overseeing the Asia Pacific region. And before that, I was also the regional manager for APMG International, which is a UK-based exam institute, overseeing the ASEAN, Japan, and Korea region. And I'm also an advocate in terms of doing pro bono areas in micro-credentials involving industrial players, renowned industrial folks as well, such as iTrain Asia. And talking about micro-credential, it was a good thing that David has already touched into the definition and those areas that is being put on in the market. In the areas in terms of from AXELOS side, the focus on micro-credential per se is more on the areas that the learners want to get hold of on top of what they currently have. So we are always advocating on start where you are now. So whether you are undergraduate, you're a master's degree holder, or you are already in a job role, or you are changing roles, or even in today's pandemic, you may be you have lost your job or unemployed. So start where you are now and look where you want to go. And then from there on, you add on the things that you want to learn, and you add on the things that you want to pursue in terms of securing the next job that is going to be on your path. And so the micro-credential thing is more to enhance your skilling in terms of improving your opportunities in your employability areas. And some of the areas that we can look at from the AXELOS products perspective, it could be we are going to launch our ITO4 specialist areas, which is one is in the sustainability in digital and IT. These areas that we have had a soft launch during the COP26 that we had during in Scotland previously. And another one that is going to be launched later this month is the ITO4 specialist, which is acquiring and managing cloud services. So these two are standalone specialist areas where for those people who are key to add on to their current understanding in terms from a business and IT perspective in the digital world, these are the so-called micro-credential definition, the bits and bytes areas that can be pursued. So it is specific for those who wanted their skill set to be these areas, and it's going to be discussed further on how these things will stack up into the people who already what they have now and what do they need to continuously improve their skill sets in moving forward. And this is my contact details in case you want to get engaged and in contact. And I thank you, and I'll put you back to Elizabeth to move to the next speaker.
Yes, thank you so much, MK. And now I'm more than excited to welcome Mr. Anthony Roger Devadoss. So the floor is yours, and yeah, we can move forward to your presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Elizabeth. Could I just confirm we can see the slides?
Yes, we can see your slides.
All right. Thank you for inviting iTrain Asia, and I'm glad to speak together with David as well as MK on this session. And my perspective will be coming from an employer perspective, employability perspective, and how do they look at microcredentials and what kind of value in terms of the demand for employability, the development of talent while they're employed as well, right? So if I can move. So a recent survey from Korn Ferry predicts a labor shortage for almost 50 million workers in Asia, specifically 50 million workers in Asia by 2030. And that's an annual opportunity impact of almost US 4 trillion, right? US dollar 4 trillion. So, and the reason why I'm sharing this is because it gives you, in the last 18 months, a significant change in terms of how people observe work, observe education, observe skilling and reskilling and upskilling, right? And that's evolving, and there's also a lot of a big shift of pivot in terms of the roles that they have taken, be it functional roles or leadership roles or industry-specific roles. And these change will continue to grow, and this actually predicts that there will be significant change among employer perspectives of how they see employees, and from a talent perspective as well, how they evolve. So I just wanted to set that stage and then just quickly kind of give you a perspective of what we do. I'm the managing director of Korn Ferry Executive Search in Malaysia, and I also wear another hat, being part of the chair of the PCOM Academy, which represents the industries, tech industries, digital tech industries and services industries in Malaysia. And from a perspective, from Korn Ferry's perspective, we are looking at how businesses, organizations, and talent come together, right? And how do we bridge that? And that means the linkage is people, and it's also about ensuring that we have the talent that we need, and we need to nurture the talent as well. So there's also about development of the talent. So while attracting is one, for the right people in the right roles and with the right skills, we're talking about the digital skills, we are talking about the soft skills, we're talking about the functional skills, and all of that needs to come together for the organization. All the dimensions must be kept in mind. So how do we do that? So Korn Ferry has got an intelligence cloud app, which connects across the areas which you see up there. I'm not going to go into all the details, but it does connect on the from a survey perspective, from an architect perspective, from a pay perspective, from an assessment perspective, from a promotion perspective, advancement, and also collaboration perspective. So all of this will come into play as part of the technology platforms that we have. Yeah. So if I were to say in one page, what do? We summarize, right? If you look at all the areas. One, look at workforce transformation. I think earlier we started off with digital transformation, diversity, equity, and inclusion, growth of businesses, and people or talent optimization. And how do we deliver that through organization strategy? Looking at rewards perspective, total rewards perspective. We have an upcoming session on the 9th to address that. Assessments for succession, because you need to progress talent within, talent acquisition, and leadership and professional development, particularly, and I think maybe David will be also highlighting some things later on how Korn Ferry collaborates with Credly and be able to provide digital and digital badging for some of the programs that we're doing. All right, so that's it for me, and back to you, Elizabeth, and hopefully we'll have a very exciting session together and be able to share with the audience a perspective of how microcredentials will help employers and employees. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Anthony, for the introduction. And now, yes, I would like to go forward with the questions for the discussion of today's webinar. Yes. So hope all of you can still hear us all clearly and can now see us as well. So I would like to remind all of you that if you have any questions, you can submit them in the chat or comment section on Facebook or LinkedIn. But we have very well acknowledged all the questions that have been submitted in before, so we will be addressing those ones in the discussion now. So without further ado, I would like to ask the first question to Mr. MK. So, micro-credentials promote continuous learning. So, what is your view on this?
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth, for this. Well, when you talk about micro-credentials, it's obviously based on the continuous learning option way of doing things. And I would view this from a comparison between fictional versus reality. So let's put it this way, where during let's say my time as a much older person than most of the audience today, I would say, if when I graduated from university and the intention is to get a job, then it is about getting that job, work hard on that job, and then that's it for the next many years to come. That was the thinking methodology back then when people go into the college degree kind of route. So, but in reality, in today's term is, especially when you look at today's VUCA world, a person's career journey is really all about adapting to change, about innovation, about co-creating value. So the learning and upskilling never stops, and you need to really have lifelong learning way of working on your whole journey in terms of improving yourself, improving your skills, upskilling, reskilling, and also co-creating value between yourself and also your potential employer and the next job that's going to come along your way. And I would say it's a very stark, apparent issues during the pandemic that a lot of people in Malaysia, as well as globally, lots of people lost their job because of the pandemic the last 2 years. And one of the key areas that everybody has to accept it is because of the skill gap that is really, really accelerated hugely. So because what we had previously learned prior to the pandemic is not able to tap into the needs of the industry that is currently required now, be it into the digital transformation, be it into the too fast moving forward in terms of the technology. So these are the skills gap that needs to be bridged. And that's where I think that the micro-credential thing is a key thing in terms of continuous learning. Let's put it a very simple example now. In university, during the 4 years of program, year in, year out, for example, for an IT degree or finance, banking, accounting degree, you'll be learning the things area about the same IT stuff, the same programming. And if you look at the accounting finance, you're looking about sales, costs, profit, those kind of areas. But why not include some of the micro-credential elements into it and talk about value management? Or why not put into areas in terms of risk management that is applicable in the industry? Why not look into the areas about digital transformation that is applicable to both IT and even to accounting? And the big classic thing is big data. Is big data is an IT thing or a finance accounting thing or a business thing? To me, big data is everybody's big thing, because if you do not embrace big data, you do not embrace artificial intelligence in today's digital IT world, you're not going to make either the IT or the business or the accounting thing into a viable career in the future. So I think I'll stop here from now and I'll move back to Elizabeth and see what other comments that's going to come up from other speakers and other areas. Thank you.
Thank you, MK. And yes, I would like to invite David to give his thoughts on this.
Yeah, and look, thanks for those observations, MK. One of the things that we discovered early on with the value of fragmenting learning pathways was to allow anybody that's investing in their education, whether it's internally at Korn Ferry, whether it's through the AXELOS programs, is to unlock the investment, both in terms of time and money, earlier in the education cycle. So that if it used to be, when I set out on a degree program, I'd have to stay the course for 4 years. And if I stopped at 3 years, I wouldn't have a lot to show for that. By fragmenting learning pathways, by creating agile sets that you can aggregate in different ways, individuals can unlock the value of their learning by applying it in a professional setting earlier in the cycle. And if I know that I can complete CV-worthy, resume-worthy skills and knowledge, if I can develop those earlier, then I will persist through to completion of longer form programs. So we see that time and time again. But also, how can I aggregate, as you described, MK, a variety, a constellation of different skills in a professional context, and build my own skill set to complete a certain role and so on, but then to break that down again and put it together in other ways. So great observations, but certainly micro-credentials are a great leap forward.
Thank you, David, for sharing. And Anthony, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. And to add to what MK and David were sharing, from an employer perspective, I think the learning culture in companies are evolving, right? And to attach credential to that learning process, micro-credentials are going to be helpful. Time is very limited because they want talent who are ready, right, and start immediately. They also need talent who needs to continuously develop as well. So micro-credential can help with the continuity of learning within the organization, and it attaches the credibility to that program, and it becomes more attractive for them to not only attract talent, but also retain talent. Back to you, Elizabeth.
Thanks a lot, Anthony, for sharing. That's a really good point that you shared with us. And now I would like to forward the question to David. So central to Credly's mission is to help organizations make better decisions based on trusted information about what people know and can do. With over 2,000 organizations partnering with Credly to manage digital credential programs, what are the sorts of pragmatic business decisions that are better informed by digital credentials and micro-credentials? And can you provide a compelling example or two how this plays out in practice for earners of micro-credentials?
Yeah, certainly, Elizabeth. And I'm sure there's going to be a good contribution from my fellow panelists on this. But I'd like to give an example of one of our clients and a very small program they've got going within their organisation. And I'm going to share my slides if I could again. And I'm also going to provide a quick definition of digital credentials to underpin a lot of what we'll talk about through the session, if I may. You're seeing my screen okay? Can you see my slides yet, Elizabeth?
Not yet. I'm waiting for them to show up.
I can see.
Okay, you got that?
Yep, I can see.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to give you a quick definition of a digital credential based on the global IMS standard, the open badge standard. And this might help give some insight into the program that I'm going to describe after it. Okay, so this is the open badge standard, and it shows the flow of creating a micro-credential through to this capacity to verify, to have a portable recognition of an accomplishment, packaged information about an accomplishment. So if we have an issuer, whether it's AXELOS or Korn, Ferry or iTrain Asia, they create in the open badge standard what's called a badge class. This is where you package up information about a micro-credential. And in this environment here where you create a badge class, you've also got the opportunity to include within that metadata information, the standards upon which that course is built, the quality assurance process, the assessment process, links through to the issuing entity's environment, plus also recommendations about what you want that individual to do next. And you can package all of that up in a digital artifact. And we'll have a look at some digital credentials in a minute. Once that's packaged up, that can then be issued to an individual as an assertion. And that assertion of a digital credential will recognise in a very portable device what an earner has achieved and what they've had to do to earn that, and why employers should care about that particular achievement. The earner of that digital credential then hosts, in this case, on the Credly platform. They can then share from that environment in a very seamless way through to social networks, professional networks, internal HR systems, and have that as a verifiable recognition of an accomplishment. The process of confirming that this is true and correct, that it's the right person with the right accomplishments issued by the right entity, is the three-part verification. And that is the issuing entity, the template, the badge class itself, and the earner of that digital credential. So with that sort of frame in mind, I'd just like to share with you and unpack a single digital credential. And in this example, we're seeing a Project Management Institute Agile Hybrid Project Pro Microcredential. This is a badge template. And in here, you can see information that includes a graphic image. All of this is metadata. The name of the accomplishment, a description of that, links through to labour market insights or employment opportunities, earning criteria that can be linked back through to more information about that, based on a standard project management body of knowledge. A quick thumbnail sketch of where this sits from high stakes to low stakes, so that anybody looking at this digital credential out in the wild can make a decision about how much of themselves they invest in this particular skill that they may wish to consume. And then a link out to more information at Project Management Institute. So I've got a lot of information about what is in this digital credential. So this is really the skills currency that we're talking about, because one of the critical elements about the digital credential, representing a micro credential or a small piece of learning, is that it's forever owned by the issuing entity. It just lives with the person that receives it. And so whenever this is verified, and those three elements are confirmed, really what it's saying is that it's PMI verifying this particular individual. And in doing so, it's more completely delivering on the compact that investing in time and money with the Project Management Institute, it doesn't stop when you leave the classroom or the course. We are with you with this device to connect you through to professional opportunities. So the example that I wanted to talk to, and I'll skip through some of these because I think Anthony covered this pretty well in his review. But this just sort of underscores this idea that there is a skills shortage, there are skills gaps developing, and digital credentials can go a long way to surfacing where the gaps are, but who has what skills. So in this example, we work with an organisation called Jones Lang LaSalle. Within Jones Lang LaSalle, they have a very specific business need that I'm going to talk about, and that is they wanted to build internal tribes of data visualization experts in Tableau and Alteryx. And so within that framework and knowing how that digital credential packages up information about an accomplishment, they created learning pathways, fragmenting those learning journeys. So you can join in the data visualization teams and start at a rookie level with Alteryx, but you can very quickly move up in a sequence or a pathway of digital credentials. Very clearly, an individual that joins JLL can architect their own future, can take control of their own development. So largely what we're seeing here is the capacity to have micro-credentials well marked, but then to democratize this, the process of learning and development in the organisation by making it very clear. So at each one of these levels, there is a standard level of expertise assessed micro-credential standard. But then as you move up through the layers, they become richer and they start to recognise different aspects of being mentors, coaching others, giving back to the community itself. And so the program becomes richer, but it's very clear that you're starting to see a culture develop within JLL in this particular internal tribe that's very well represented by the digital credentials internally. So if we were to just look at one example, one digital credential in this little vignette, here's a typical example. But what I wanted to point out here is that the micro-credential, as we've defined it, it can very tightly map to a set of pragmatic business objectives. So here, completed 7 advanced challenges on the Alteryx community, awarded and had 3 solutions accepted to solve real business problems, presented 3 lunchtime sessions to help others, and then passed a certification exam. Now, anybody that's earned this digital credential, then they have this capacity to not only share this out, and I'll give you some examples of this. Here are 2 examples of Alteryx digital credentials shared from within the organisation JLL. And what you'll notice here is, in this case, Jamie has said, view my verified achievement from JLL. Can I just add how fun it is that JLL has gamified the journey of levelling up our skill sets? So the advantages of this to JLL to be able to allow people to engage, develop themselves and remain productive in their roles is phenomenal. And what you also see in a lot of these examples is that anybody seeing this digital credential or this micro credential out in the wild really gets to see JLL as a employer of choice, because it's a window into the programs that are going on within JLL. So really it's a passive recruitment tool. And again, another example of the programs spilling out of JLL and moving more firmly into the Tableau community. And again, there's this idea of peer validation and celebrating the success, whether it's internally or externally. Okay. And another example of a lot of people celebrating the success, whether it's iTrain Asia, whether it's AXELOS achievements, being able to see how this common currency of skill can be used as a trading currency is becoming clearer day by day. Okay. So I might just hand back at this stage and ask for others if they have any comments on this.
Thank you, David, for sharing. I might just note, as a fellow, as a previous scout, that it reminds me a lot about the scout movement and their badges that they're getting, the example that you shared from the company. But
Indeed.
Yeah, but I would like to continue with a question to Mr. Anthony. And what's your idea on what's the industry validation, and how do these micro-credentials compare to degrees, regular degrees, and master degrees when it comes to employing such candidates?
Thanks. I think David's explanation was very detailed in terms of validation, so I was engrossed on it. Thanks for the question on how do employers look at micro-credential versus a TVET diploma or a degree or a master's degree or even a global certification, right? So, well, the preference generally among the larger population is to have a degree, right, as part of an entry point in most of the prerequisites, right? So if where the employers cap, that seems to be the first point of entry, how employers look at talent. So can we do away with that and say, can we have a stack of micro-credentials? Will that be sufficient for me to take an entry point? We are not there yet, right? So, but are we progressing? Yes, we are, right? So these are different steps towards how the industry is looking at, employers are looking at it from them, right? And we see that whatever's happened in the recent time, given that we have no physical presence to go and attend a university program or a degree program, has now pretty much become virtual. So the options have become more flexible for individuals to consider and employers to accept those options that during this period of time, I have taken a set of micro-credentials that I stacked up that leads to a certification or leads to a diploma or leads to a degree, and whichever level, at the bachelor's level or the master's level. So one, I would say it's being accepted slower than I would expect. Can it be faster? Yes, of course, because today the acceptance needs to increase. So from an industry perspective, we are very, very open. From PCOM perspective, there's lots of certifications, in fact, majority of them come with micro-credentials that can help them achieve those goals. But from the employer perspective, the larger population are still having to yet to accept that as part of a prerequisite, as part of a adjustment to the prerequisite that they have already have, right? In terms of awareness, I would say yes, the awareness is coming up, and discussions like these will help them open up and be able to see, can I accept a talent with a micro-credential or a stack up micro-credential that can help them be considered for opportunities that are skills or functional or leadership levels, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony, for sharing. And I would like to return now to David. And David, so in your previous conversations, you referred to digital credentials as tools for dialogue, as something more powerful than simply a modern version of a certificate or another form of recognition. Can you expand on that idea for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking about Anthony's observations about whether we're there yet in terms of digital credentials stacking up, or sorry, micro-credentials stacking up to a degree, and whether they will replace the degree. The birth of micro-credentials and the digital credential movement in organisations like IBM came from the challenges that those organisations faced to find the skills necessary to meet pragmatic commercial objectives. And in recent conversations with IBM, and noting similarly to your remarks, Anthony, that there's a shortfall in the US alone of data science certificates or certified data scientists. They have a requirement for about 500,000 a year. And the capacity of the system to develop data scientists is around 50,000 a year. So there's a significant gap between what is required by industry and commerce and what the education system can deliver. And so in the case of IBM, establishing what was Big Data University, followed by cognitive class AI, creating internal micro-credential programs, offering those not only internally, but then opening the doors and offering them to the market as a way of pre-skilling and developing talent before they even arrived at IBM is really in the ascendancy. So IBM now issued more than 6 million digital credentials. They have 2,500 separate badged programs. So it's really what we're seeing with a program like IBM is that the education institutions are working very hard to match the agility that's required, that's being demonstrated in entities like Cognitive Class and IBM. And one of the most profound flips in education that we saw not that long ago was Northeastern University giving credit points for digital credentials and micro-credential programs earned from within IBM. And so this idea of work integrated learning, but seeing a merger of what is required by industry and commerce feeding into education programs and being recognised to stack up 2 degrees is moving very rapidly. And so that's my first observation on the tools for dialogue. The second and most important aspect of a tool for dialogue is if I issue a digital credential to a student that's completed an AXELOS program, really that is just not simply replacing out the certificate. It's a way to deepen and strengthen the relationship with that individual, because if you have this idea that a digital credential is owned by the issuing entity that can be monitored. You can include recommendations and next steps. You can really start to engage that individual. How valuable is this digital credential in your professional development? You can include surveys in the digital credential. What would you like to see us do next? So if you see the digital artifact and the micro-credential as a way to co-create the future between the individual and the issuing entity, that's where the real power lies. That's where the strength is. And this compact and this tool for dialogue, that's the micro-credential with the digital credential and the verification on top of that.
Thank you, David, for sharing. And I would like to move on to MK. And a question to you, MK, is maybe you can explain how to verify micro-credentials and how to verify that they're accredited.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I think this is a very good question. I think at the end of the day, whether we're talking about macro credential, which is via the college and the university, or micro credential or nano credential, those kind of things, it boils down to what exactly is the credential about, and how do one see accreditation? Because I think that from our viewpoint, from AXELOS Global Best Practice, we have always been advocating proper accreditation from the trainer themselves, from the syllabus, from the certification, as well as the training materials. So we believe that micro-credentials that is being defined today is offering a so-called, in the inverted commas, an accreditation everywhere, where a candidate can put on their credentialing into their on-the-go digital wallet or skills e-banking, which travels globally. And of course, one has to also need to ensure that it is verifiable, the digital badge of the credential. So using the digital badges that is offered by Credly, for example, they are one of the global trusted as being the leading digital credential solution provider. As our AXELOS products such as the ITO, Prince2 MSP, and other certifications are done via the AXELOS UK digital badge using Credly. So this such trusted platform offers the AXELOS certification products a global best practice standard, where candidates or students are able to prove them through the Credly digital badges, where who are the people behind it, who are doing the offering it, what kind of accreditation that's being done, and what kind of course is being done up. So I would say that the accreditation everywhere is very important in this aspect. But on the flip side, is it everybody is accredited when they're offered through the micro-credential digital badge? So not necessarily so. So at the end of the day, I think that rather than in the past few years, if you remember, in university days, where I think decades ago, there's always a single degree that is being done from a university. And then there was a time where many years that is being hub on a double degree from a university degree. Then it was a time where everybody is going for master's degree, not necessarily the MBA, but master's degree. So then now we're talking about having micro credentials and having everything which is digital badge that is a lot of people are taking it and listing down on their LinkedIn profiles, that is pages and pages. So at the end of the day, I would say that it has to fit for purpose, fit for use. And the verifiable micro-credential thing has to be accredited, where it has to be suited for some purpose in terms of it. So it has to be for a specific skill set, it has to be for a specific purpose, and it has to be for specific needs. So for example, I was having a discussion recently with some of the subject matter experts in the market, talking about having big data or data science qualifications. So if someone which is in this area, so do you pursue in terms of a university degree on computer science, or do you go straight into micro-credential, into data engineer, into data science areas? So it is a chicken and egg thing. Because I think that if today you have a computer science graduate coming out from university, it's very hard to get a job. And on the flip side, you may have a higher chance if you have a micro degree in data engineer or data science. So that comes back to a few elements. One is, do the industrial companies that is in need of hiring want someone who knows the skill set, who has the skill set to do the things on day one, or they want to nurture someone over a period of time to be having the knowledge and the platform into their organization skill sets or the organization technology. For example, in IBM, if you do not know IBM products or IBM platforms or IBM big data areas, it's very difficult for you to go in. You can be a very, very well-known in terms of other countries or other organization skill sets, but it doesn't suit what IBM needs today. You have a lesser chance, put it this way, to grow your career advancement in there. So you have to be skilled up into requirements of the organization who need it. So I felt that the employer side, the industry side, has not been quite open and transparent to let the candidates know in the market as, hello, I need this kind of 10 skill sets that is available, specific skill sets that is available in the next 12 months. So then the people in the training market or in the skill set market are able to churn out the right skills for the right people and for the right employees. So that's where I think that having university degrees today is, by the time the 4-year is completed when you graduate, the scene might be different. So that's where I think that it's the employability chances and also the needs of the students that once they graduate is important, as well as now when micro-credential comes in, it's really about verifiable and accredited so that you know what you're doing and the employers are absolutely have confidence in you in terms of co-creating value together. Back to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, MK. And David, I see that you'd like to add on this.
Yeah, and one of the great evolutions that we're seeing, MK, and this just purely acknowledges what you were saying, and that is, now shouldn't it be the case that if I'm at IBM, that the leadership teams that are deploying different project groups would be able to see the constellation of skills and certifications held by an individual. So now that 95% of the world's IT certifications are issued on Credly, those that are using the platform will be able to see, well, let's look at our skill sets more deeply. Let's see what accomplishments they've earned from Korn Ferry. Let's see what they've earned, their ITIL certifications. What have they got from PMI and IBM? And that is really what's fueling a lot of the shift in the way organisations are structured. Less hierarchical, more project teams, more accessing not only internal skill sets, but skills that are earned externally. So what we are seeing is that there will always be people looking for work. There will always be work looking for people. And so if we have this trading currency and we can make it very clear internally at IBM to consume a wider array of accomplishments, then that's exactly where we should be heading. And that's exactly where we're heading quickly now.
Thank you, David, for sharing. And moving forward with the next question to Anthony. So what importance do employers give towards digital credentials? How we have addressed this before, but I believe you can add on more on this.
Yeah, sure. So I think employers have begun to see, and I'll give you some stats and that can help you perspective. So if you see the global programs, micro-credential programs, the largest scale is distributed between technology programs and business programs. And then comes the rest of the programs, right? So given the last acceleration towards the digital transformation, more acceptance towards technology programs have taken place, right? And this is not from just an employer perspective, but also from PCOM perspective, where we see as a voice of the tech industry that more and more of tech companies adopting to this faster. and as well as those companies which are, in fact, majority of the organizations are either in different stages of the transformation, digital transformation, or in the early stages, at least, very least, and across the diaspora of organizations. Like you could be a startup, micro, SME, mid-sized organization, a GLC or a MNC. You are going through some form of those. So the need for talent with those skills have increased. Now, I'll share with you a particular financial institution which is on a high growth phase for data scientists, right? And of course, across the board, this is happening right now. So the need for accessing talent in the market, it's a very talent type market, right, for data scientists. And imagine if you were to wait for that to happen is one thing. So they themselves consider to set up a digital academy within for internal. And I think some of the examples which David and MK gave were kind of related to that, developing from internally. It's because they have realized the importance that you need to make it happen internally as well, right? And as for external, the importance is now becoming more because they need faster talent, job-ready talent, speed to deployment, credibility, verifiability, trackability. Okay, and this becomes important because normally when they employ talent, they do I think you're familiar, all of you on the call are familiar with reference checks. They usually break it down with employment check. There's a degree and a certification check, right? And among other checks, right? So imagine if you already come with that as part of a micro-credential. Like earlier, David was alluding to all the process that clearly determines who this is assigned to and authorizes the person, the identity, everything is connected. The importance is now far more acceptable by companies to digital credentials, right? So, so two parts. One is to develop from within as part of offering a very fast-track program for academy for internal larger organizations. Small organizations are looking at working with industry associations and organizations like HRD Corp to be able to provide those access and institutions out there. And of course, for those ones who have acquired those skills via a traditional institution, a university, or a TVET, this becomes a plus point. That means you not only have those diplomas, but you also have additional micro-credentials that can go, I would say, complement each other very well. And employers are able to appreciate that as part of their process to bring in talent and as well as to make sure that they are pretty much more on the technology talent right now, followed by the business group of talent, but it's now spreading across the rest. I think there's one particular medical institution in Malaysia has adopted micro-credentialing, and it's becoming more and more acceptable that they also look at it. So it's not just one particular industry or any, but more and more importance have been given to them so that they are accepting. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. It's very interesting to hear that medical institutions are adopting micro-credentials also these days. And yeah, to move forward, David, a question to you. So we've discussed a few big concepts and seen examples of mature micro-credential and digital credential programs delivering good results. But where do organizations or institutions start?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. We certainly see that the rule of thumb is this is an evolution, not a revolution. That and Anthony alluded to this, that when you start issuing or developing internal micro-credentialing programs, there is this requirement to have a cultural shift, that this is the way the organisation develops, this is the way the organisation establishes a learning culture that aligns very closely to business objectives. But I'm going to ask a question, Anthony, listening to your remarks before, and I want to sort of park this to one side for a minute, but we're seeing an increasing, rapidly developing trend from purely development of technical skills or domain expertise skills to human skills. the human skills that are going to be enduring regardless of the nature of what technology organisations are using: adaptability, resilience, growth mindset, leadership, communication. I think organisations that want to start with a digital credential program or a small micro-credential program, I'm seeing effort start both in a technical area, but also in some of those human skills. So Anthony, just across to you for a minute, just in terms of the rise of micro-credentials around the development of human skills. What are you seeing?
All right. And that's a very good point in terms of balancing. While the pressure for businesses are being driven towards transformation, growth, profitability, shareholder return, they are prioritizing those transformation-related skills, right? And I must say, during this process, there's the human touch, emotional intelligence, social intelligence, leadership avenues, supervisory skill, problem-solving skill, creative skills. Lots of them are still on hindsight for now, right? It's not that it is off. If I may say, while they're driving forward, it's in the rear view for them. It's not in the front view, right? So the adoption for the technical skills are on priority, but not all organizations have moved the needle to bring in the human skills up to speed with the technical skills yet. But nevertheless, there is clear-cut acceptance, particularly due to the pandemic to endemic now. The situation about, for example, resilience, mental health, and all of these are coming up more and more. And they want leaders to be able to appreciate that you need to have these skills equipped to be able to manage this changing landscape out there. It's not just you build the technical skills and lose out on the human touch and the human skills, which will not allow, I mean, if you don't have the balance, you can't move forward. So while it's still in the hindsight, I would say there's more acceptance coming around with certain programs, particularly related to resilience as part of the skill, and as well as creativity, creative skills as part of it, as part of the human skills that's moving up. But of late, the latest big topic is about making sure the resilience related to mental health is on top of the list.
Thanks, Anthony. And just to get back to this question now, to round out where do organisations start, I might share my screen and give you an insight into, again, I'll reference IBM, if I may. And here is a slide from good friend and colleague David Lisa at IBM. Are you seeing that slide, Elizabeth? Anthony, are you seeing that slide yet?
Yes,
David, I can see. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So this is an indication of some advice provided by IBM about where to start. And I won't go into the details, but you'll have this after the session to look at more deeply. But again, some basic steps and some basic guidelines. And to point number 7 here, the one that I think is most critical is start with a program that you know and you do well now internally for development, or a particular program like your micro-credential degree at iTrain Asia. Start there, use the tool as a tool for dialogue to engage all of the stakeholders in the design of future programs. And so that start small, use the tool for dialogue, set yourself a framework around some of these principles. And just one further insight, here were the objectives that IBM established when they set off down the path. These are some of the corporate objectives that they wanted to do. Reduce customer service and support, increase client confidence, map skills at a nano level. These are fairly standard, but great ideas to start with. And again, I'll share this after the session. So back to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you for sharing, David. And now, question to Anthony. And can employers include micro-credentials as part of the learning culture, and why should they?
Yeah, this becomes as part of the learning culture. Organizations which are large enough have established their academies internally, right? And those who are at different other stages, they have their training and development divisions, and they're catering to that. Yeah? And the faster way for everyone to seamlessly adopt this without having to make a large investment in resources and others is to consider the pathway of micro-credentials. So instead of you having a huge team to be able to do that and set up, and depending on the scale of the organization, every other organization at every level today as an employer can consider the pathways that can be generated with micro-credential process and integrate that as part of the learning culture or development culture, talent development culture within the organization. If the pathway covers technical expertise as an organization, you have them. If it needs to cover the business skills, it is available out there. And if it needs to cover the human skills, it's also there. And the idea is, instead of having invested and prepare and everything, and then aligning with standards that you need to go, why not look at those which come with the standards, right? And if it's already established standards, and if it allows you to add to that portfolio, from the perspectives of MK and David earlier, we have already have the global standards with us, right? So imagine if you were to work with them and or adopt them and incorporate it in your pathway, learning culture pathway, then it's going to help you make sure that you're able to accelerate that journey with a reasonable investment, as against investing everything from your own infrastructure and building it out and developing, right? So here you can augment. Micro-credentials can accelerate and augment the learning culture. And of course, the baseline vision, mission, value, alignment of the organization, your product-centric approach or your service-centric approach, all that is your DNA, right, as an employer. But what we are saying is, the ones that you need to add to that, it doesn't need to have a separate infrastructure. You could just adopt the micro-credential pathway, integrate it with your learning culture. You can accelerate the journey at a very reasonable investment. Back to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Anthony. And further on, I would like to continue with MK. What do you think? Micro-credentials, are they earned to learn or learn to earn?
Oh, thanks, Elizabeth. For this question, I think whether earn to learn or learn to earn, it's I think you have to go back to the early days where higher education is seen primarily as a means to an end and not an end to itself. So what does that mean? Where we have to look at it in terms of making a quality decision. You have to make a decision in your lifetime when you finish your secondary school. You need to embark either to a college or university, and you need to make that decision versus what's the outcome desired. So I think predominantly not to be, but by and large, I think for this part of the region in Asia per se, I think it's more of a study culture rather than a learning culture. I think the other speakers will have something other to comment about it, but I'm just saying that we have been brought up in decades or maybe in centuries that we study to pass an exam. We study to get a certificate so that we can get a job. So it's not about the learning culture where the continuous learning, the lifelong learning thing. We want to have a outcome that we skill ourselves to prepare ourselves. We may not be doing that job role now, but I aspire to do it in the near future. So I need to prepare myself and work myself up so that I'm ready for the next job when it's available. This is really lacking. And lacking from the student's perspective, lacking from the parents' perspective, lacking from the when they go out to work as an employee perspective during their annual development, and also lacking from the employers themselves in the industry, where they have one side of the viewpoint of what they want to do, where they want to go, but it's not really including largely the employers into it. And likewise, they are not also interested in working in collaboration with the universities, with the colleges, and worst of all, with the TVET. So there is a huge disjointment in terms of that, where the TVET, the colleges, the universities, and the industrial people, and in the middle of it, where the people are involved are the employees themselves, the candidates, the students themselves. So people will go into that area where do I need to earn to learn what I want, or do I learn to get a good career so that I can earn more, then I can learn something else. So at the end of the day, we have to find out, you can never judge a decision that you have made previously based on an outcome. The outcome is never 100% under your control, because there's an element of luck. Put it this way, 2 years ago, if you have someone, you have tell everybody here, you say that, well, the pandemic is going to hit us, digital transformation is going to be happening 10 times faster than it's happened in the last 10 years. Everybody will say that you're crazy, MK, because people don't believe in what they can do until where you're forced to the corner where you have no other means but to do your transformation. That is a human nature thing. Whether it's good or bad, it's arguable, because like a lot of people say, we'll cross the bridge when we see the bridge. But I think that we have to also be playing better in terms of the devil's advocate, where the intentions are more important than the outcome. Because if the intention is to get a better outcome out of it, we have put our efforts into it, we've strategized, we've planned ahead, we've invested our resources into learning outcomes and continued learning improvement, co-creating value, whether it's going to be college degree or micro-credentials or TVET. At the end of the day, we want the learning journey to upskill ourselves. The skills gap needs to be bridged for an individual. We need to co-create value with the employers, whether it's existing employers or our future employers. Because once a country or a region like ASEAN, all or most of the organizations work together with the employees, work together with the universities, work together with the training providers, the TVETs or whatever, and then they upskill most of the people in the region, then ultimately the region will flourish. Ultimately, the GDP will improve, because then the skills value, whether it's going to be the micro credential or the skills credential, is meant to help somebody to navigate their professional development and their career. And this can be earned before, during, or even after their degree, diploma, or their TVET skill set, or even if they are currently unemployed or they are already employed, or what they want to do now. Bottom line is, we need to plan ahead, we need to see ahead, we need to transform ahead, and not when we are put into a corner, when we have no choice and we react. Because once we react, you make a bad decision. You make a bad decision, you will sacrifice some of the good outcomes that you intend to have. Making a decision is good, but you need to have a good planning in terms of the outcome that is desired. Back to you, Elizabeth.
Thanks a lot, MK, for sharing. That's I completely agree with you, and kind of want to add a quote from a book like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that says that the world would take people out of the slums, but Christ takes the slums out of people, and then they take themselves out of the slums. So kind of thinking that this goes hand in hand with what you just shared. So it's important for all of us, yeah, to upskill ourselves and take in charge of our futures and work towards a better future for ourselves and for the society that we're living in. And to move on, I would like to ask Anthony again, how can micro credentials actually benefit employers?
Right. So today, employers are finding it a big challenge to attract talent, qualified talent, on a timely basis. In fact, more so because of the demanding expectations they have from their line and their business in terms of those who are ready, right? So the readiness is a gap. And micro-credentials become very, very, very useful at this point of time. So if you have and I'm just taking an example, right? If you know, statistically in Malaysia, in 12 to maybe 18 months, we have a significant amount of displaced employees, right? And the thing is, those employees would like to upskill or reskill or kind of pivot into another area, will be acquiring those skills. That opportunity has now come into play for them to acquire within a short duration, acquire a very powerful, highly what I would call as applied learning approach, where they've picked up a skill, added that to themselves, and then go seek into employment, right? And so employers have become more open to consider, given the talent crunch market of their qualified talent. They are happy to see that there are certified talent out there through micro credentials, right? So to them, number one is about having to consider qualifying the statement. They have met with all the right skill set, mindset, and attitude. They are looking at this as a plus point for them to acquire talent. So that's for them. Now, while they are also having challenges to attract them, there is a set of challenges to retain them, because when they are hot skills, I would say the demand is going out, right? So how do we ensure that we keep them engaged and giving them an opportunity within the organization, either through internal process or through external process, to equip themselves with short-term programs? Because you can't send them out to take a 3 months program or a 6 months program or a 12 months program. They can't afford to do that right now. However, while at work, if you could pick up a highly credentialed microcredit for your program, capture that skill set, digital skill set, get a validation through a digital badge, and then you become productive to be able to contribute to those segments. Right? So I'm just adding on both sides. So both sides from an attract perspective, retain perspective, but develop is the indicator in between that's able to connect both the linkages, right? So now, when an employer loses a talent, you lose almost 2 years of investment. Now, imagine if you were to have an opportunity to look at those different aspects. And of course, I'm not saying this is the only one, right? You have to, of course, have an entire employee value proposition and learning and development exercise, career progression exercise, good compensation exercise. All of that is part. But I'm also saying that this becomes a conduit to that for career progression, right? You are investing in them in different forms, tangible and intangible. So it becomes a benefit to employers to be able to do that so that they can retain, versus kind of observing a loss when somebody leaves, especially if you're a key person in the organization. And if you're a small organization, the impact is even higher, right? As you look at a larger organization, of course, it becomes, you spread across the value chain, and then this program becomes highly valuable to them so that they can produce what's called transferable skills, enhance their career interests to stay within, and career progressions to go in. So these are the indicators, I would say, that micro credentials will help or benefit employees as they go.
Thank you, Anthony, for sharing. That's a breath of fresh air to hear about the employer's perspective on that. Micro credentials help in the turnover of employees. And to move on, question to MK. So are micro credentials for everyone?
Good question, Elizabeth. Well, I would say that micro credential on large and means is to meet the individual learning and employment needs. It's focusing on skills development and closing skills gap. So whether it's for everyone, it's based on user experience and learning experience. Obviously, I personally think that, as David mentioned earlier, and also Anthony has mentioned earlier, everybody wants things quicker, cheaper, and maybe you can't say that it's always at the best value or best quality, because best quality things doesn't come quick and it will not come cheap. So because if you were to invest the longest possible time in the most expensive way of investment into a certain product or services, by the time that thing comes out and into the market for consumption, for usage, it may not be fit for purpose. It was once deemed to be the best value or best quality, but is no longer relevant in the market or in the industry. So it comes back to the new college degree thing. There is a fearful thing because of the vast technology advancement in the VUCA environment, where after 4 years of college degree, what would have the market in the industry has become? What has changed? So that's a fearful thing. But on the hindsight thing, micro-credentials is able to bridge the gap. So I would say that micro-credential is not to replace traditional college degree entirely. It is supposed to take it with a pinch of salt, where it's an option for an alternative route to achieve what you want to do in terms of a college degree. And it needs to be a stackable kind of a specific skill set and competency, which is valuable in terms of co-creating value with the employers. And it is also provide equal opportunity, diversity, inclusive, because then there is no disparity in terms of, if you are not so well off from a family, you can still have a chance to excel in your career. You can still have the chance to skill up whatever you want to do in your career journey. Without looking into that, I lost my chance when I was young because I couldn't go to MIT. I couldn't go to Cambridge or Oxford. So it's about having that kind of, in summary, I think from employer and also the employee viewpoint, it is best that we put things into perspective, where we put it into a graphical, where time, skill, quality, cost, and value in the center. So it's a triangular thing where time and quality, the skill, quality, the cost in the three axes, and then in the center of it will be the value. So if an employer or the employee has lots of time, you see, because time is relative. So some people think that they have lots of time. So you can take as long as possible. You can take one degree after another. You can continue with your MBAs, your masters, move to different universities, and take all the time you want to skill up and satisfy your appetite from a learning experience perspective. But from a skill quality perspective, the skill quality is not from the individual perspective. You may think that you are a good big data person. You may think that you're a good IT service management person. But the point is, if the employer doesn't employ you to demonstrate and to come up and churn out your skill set, you will not be able to demonstrate whether how good your quality is. So it's about what the employer wants from you. So that's why I reiterate just now that the employer need to come forward and tell us in the industry market, what exactly do your skill sets need in your organization or in the industry in the next 12 months? Then at least then they can be providing in terms of the market movement, the skill up, the right people, the right skill sets and whatnot. Then from a cost perspective, if you have deep pockets, you can invest anything you want, you can spend a lot of money into electric cars or whatever, then it's fine. But then what's the value proposition? So at the end of the day, you need to balance up the triangle of the time, the skill quality, the cost that you have, and then the center of the value that you need to optimize as an individual, as an employee, as well as the employers outside, that you want to get the best value in terms of co-creating value between the employees and the employers. I think that is what I would say, that whether or not it's for everybody, micro-credential needs to be made a decision by the people themselves. And that is you and I and everybody else. Back to you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, MK. And yes, we've already run out of time, but last question I would like to address to David, and then we'd move on. Then we'd move on closing the session. But if you gentlemen have any other points that you'd like to share, please feel free. And the questions that have been sent in during the session, we'll be addressing after in the follow-up email to all of you who registered for the webinar. But yeah, so now the last question. So so is apologies. So you referred to You referred to the diversity of clients and partners on Credly as a digital credential ecosystem. And we hear terms such as skills trading currency and a common language of verified skills. Where is this idea of common shared standards gaining real traction, and what are the real key benefits you're seeing?
Look, it's a good question, and can I just acknowledge MK's comment about co-designing micro-credential programs. One of the last question, are micro-credentials for everyone? My view is that as individuals, as students, as employees and as employers, we learn every day in micro sets of knowledge and information. If we can start to fragment learning pathways that better align with corporate objectives, and then we can start to map those skill sets against capability frameworks as defined by Korn, Ferry or by AXELOS. And then if we can start to surface those skills so that we can deploy those skills based less on our traditional biases of seniority or title or department or geography or ethnicity or gender, if we can start to create a skills currency where individuals can be engaged and developed, and the programs co-designed by education institutions, professional associations, employers, and even co-designed by the individuals themselves in that tool for dialogue idea, then I think we're solving a lot of the problems which are appearing very quickly. And so a skills trading currency, if I share digital credentials that I've earned from Korn Ferry or AXELOS, and they're verifiable, you can see the underpinning andragogy and academic rigor, then I'm encouraged to keep doing that, because it does mean that my future is somewhat assured if I can take with some agility those small pieces of learning and progress my future within an organisation and architect my own career. So the digital credentials are really becoming that skills trading currency, but it entirely relies on the MKs and the Anthonys of this world to make sure that what underpins those currencies gives the currency its value. And while ever the value is high, the future is rosy for digital credentials and micro credentials, but the value has got to be set high amongst all of us on this panel and anybody listening at this panel to help co-design that future with the tools that we've got. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks a lot, David. And with that, I would with that, I would also like to end today's webinar session. And thank you once again, David, MK, and Anthony, for joining today and sharing your thoughts on the issues raised, and also about the opportunities that micro-credentials can offer to people to start their careers on a different journey. So yeah, and yeah, so if Anthony or MK, you would like to add anything before closing, you're more than welcome to do that now.
I'm good, Elizabeth. I think that today has been a very exciting session to interact with my fellow eminent panelists, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for moderating this very well, and all the audience out there for joining us in this session today. And I hope the awareness to micro-credentials has been very good. Thank you.
From my side, thank you to Elizabeth for hosting us, and also to iTrain Asia and the panelists as well. And I think I want to make a good gesture today is, I think all Credly's credentials are great credentials, but not all credentials are Credly. So I think that would be a quote that is quite nice. And I think that we need to, I think the takeaway thing is everyone needs to go deeper to find out what actually are they getting back in terms of their investment into micro-credentials. because you can skill up in a lot of ways in today's digital transformation way, but you need to ensure that it's verifiable, it's adding value to you, and it's also need to be trusted platform and great credential. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone. And if you have any questions to the speakers, a reminder, you can send them to us, also to the email where you receive the confirmation for today's webinar session. And thank you once again, David, MK, and Anthony, for joining today and giving your insights on micro-credentials. And yeah, so I hope you all have a wonderful weekend ahead of you, and I hope you stay safe. And yeah, that's it from my side. And I would like to remind our attendees that if there are any women joining in today, then we have the Microsoft Women in AI program that is fully sponsored training session by Microsoft and teaches the fundamentals of artificial intelligence. And we'll be having our training sessions on November 26th and also on December 11th and 18th. So you can find out more about it by going to the link of bit.ly/Women in AI. And you can also reach out to me to further inquire on this. And yeah, then also I'd like to share again, remind that we will be having our launch event of Girls in Tech on December 8th from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. and joining in by wonderful women who are in leading positions in the tech industry. So thank you once again to everyone who joined in today, and thank you to our speakers. And I wish you all the best. Thank you and bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.